What's the most memorable high school mishap, either hilariously funny, or disastrously unfortunate, that you still chuckle, or cringe about, to this day? Spanish class junior year. We had to make an instructional video all in Spanish. One guy made a video about rolling a blunt using a tortilla and refried beans as proxies. The best part was that he made it into a skit, in which his girlfriend was played by a blow-up sex doll. Every scene had something inappropriate in the background, like a dildo, or a bong. It was our Spanish teacher's first year teaching, so she made the mistake of letting the entire video play. He got suspended for a couple days, and I'm pretty sure she got in trouble as well, but absolutely legendary. There was this dude, God, he was as high as a kite, the most competent person to be operating saws. Anyway, he sliced off his first finger with said saw, and due to the copious amount of drugs in his system, he seemingly didn't feel a thing, left the workshop, walked to the front office, where I was, at the time, casually walked in, puts the finger on the counter, and asks to go home early. Office people obviously called an ambulance, and I guess, once the ambulance got here, the pain and realization set in. You could hear him scream from the other side of the school. I will never forget the office worker's face when he pulled his finger out of his pocket. Absolutely priceless, and a little traumatizing. Had a kid we called Pennywise, because he'd pick up every coin he saw. I'm talking, bend over, stand up, bend over, stand up, if he saw 2 coins. So, we'd lay trails of coins to the vending machine, and just watch him do his thing, out of pure fascination. Anyways, one day I was walking down a concrete flight of stairs out to the bus loop, and had a stray nickel in my pocket, and just threw it to see if I could get it to roll in a cool way, and didn't realize the dude was behind me. He effing chased it with reckless abandon, threw himself over a steel railing, and slammed his face into the concrete to catch the thing. I just watched in horror, but when he caught it, he just inspected it, like he always did, and just kept walking. A science teacher was performing one of those experiments, where you put a small piece of metal in water, and watch the flaming reaction. Unfortunately, the small piece of metal slipped out of the tweezers, and fell into the water from height. There was a small bang, as it exploded straight up out of the water, a loud ping, as it ricocheted off of the ceiling lights, and a brief crack, as it damaged the science room window, in a hilarious Rube Goldberg setup. There was a group of jocks in my high school, who for some reason, thought it would be great fun to have sword fights with plastic forks. This happened several days running, and naturally, several people got stabbed, not badly hurt, but, come on, plastic forks? So, our honored principal got on the loudspeaker and announced, "There will be no more forking in the cafeteria." Legendary. A friend of mine discovered he could fart on command. So, we're in English class, with about 10 minutes left in the period, and he's letting them rip. We're all laughing over in our corner of the classroom. Then all of a sudden, his face turns from joy to dread. He looks at me and asks if I have an extra pair of boxers in my gym locker, because he's pretty sure he shat his pants. I laugh about it often. Edit, he definitely shit his pants. I made a kid on the playground shit a one-piece snowsuit from laughing too much. He warned me first, and I kept doing whatever it was, and he jumped off the swing and ran into the bathroom. I went in the bathroom, and he was in a stall with his suit on the ground, cleaning it up. He had to call his mom for clothes, and spent the rest of the school day in shorts and a poofy vest, in the middle of winter, pretending he didn't shit his snowsuit. Our high school pool used to open up to the public during the summer. One of the girls I had a crush on worked there as a lifeguard. She was a junior, and I had just finished my freshman year. She was lifeguarding the diving pool. So, me being the avid diving board connoisseur, I went on the diving board, and thought I could impress her by doing a butt bounce 1.5 dive off the springboard. The idea was I jump, bounce off my butt off the springboard, flip 1.5 times, for a perfect 10 dive, in front of her, thus securing her adoration, and maybe I could then make her my girlfriend. Well, I run up, do the butt bounce, but my shorts get stuck on the springboard. I am committed. I initiated the flip, but I flip right out of my shorts, which are still hooked on the springboard. Mid-flip, I realize I am spinning butt naked in the air and stop my tuck, thus belly flopping, butt naked, into the water. I come up, and I notice my shorts are still hooked on the springboard. She comes to the edge of the water laughing, and asks, "Are you okay?" All the other kids that were in line for the springboard were cracking up. I told her, "Yeah, I'm fine, can you grab my shorts?" But the next dude in line had already kicked my shorts into the water. I swim, butt naked, to my shorts, put them on back in the water, and quickly get out of the pool, and call it a day. Man, I was embarrassed. Her and I had band together, so I saw her often throughout the school year. We became good honest friends. She would often bust my balls about that day, though, saying that was one of the funniest things she had ever seen. I believe it was in junior year in high school. I wasn't in the class, but I heard what happened. It was in shop class in the downstairs workshop. A buddy of mine called out another student's name, and when the student looked, my buddy threw a nail across the shop at him, and the damn thing stuck in this other student's head. I remember seeing him walking down to the office, with the nail sticking out of his head, just laughing his ass off. I'll never forget this. Back when they used those hard old rubber mouse balls, Buddy was like, "What do you bet I can catch this in my mouth?" He wanted someone to dare him to, and everyone was like, "Nah, dude, don't even try, that's a terrible idea." He did, but he bust out his 2 front teeth. It's amazing, the stupid shit teenage boys do. Seriously lucky, a couple of us didn't end up killing ourselves. I remember hanging halfway over a cliff in a car. If we had slid another foot, it would have flipped, and we would have fallen 20 feet, upside down. Dude literally had his pants ripped off, trying to jump on a moving car. Dude got stabbed with a screwdriver, trying to porch beer, ended up knocking the beer owner out with a cinder block. Just a whole mess of dumb, miscreant, and reckless behavior. My junior year in high school, in the late 90s, we had a roofing crew, resurfacing most of the school's roof, over the semester. Near the end of the year, a bunch of the old school green vans, from immigration, rolled up during lunch, and the entire roofing crew lost their shit, and attempted to bolt. But one guy on the crew jumped off the roof and rolled, and sprinted across the baseball field. My man straight up Kong jumped over the back fence, and disappeared in the apartment complex, across the street. A bunch of us were chilling at our old smoker's corner, on the sidewalk, and watched it all go down. We were cheering that dude on, the whole way. First time I ever saw parkour used, for its original purpose, LOL. Do you all remember Jibby from iCarly? Well, there was a mentally handicapped kid in our school, this was junior year, and he was actually obsessed with him, and the whole show. It made everyone kind of uncomfortable, but what can you do about it? Kid was in his own little world. The program he was in had him finish school a year early, and he wanted to do a senior prank, like everyone else who was graduating. Our high school has a balcony over the stairwell, and I guess his caretaker had taken his eyes off of him for 5 minutes, and he was full on launching himself off of the balcony, screaming, "Jibby," on his way down. Don't worry, he's okay, the kid was built like a truck. When I was in grade school, there were 2 houses on the top of this very steep hill. Our school bus had to go up this winding weird road, just to pick up these 2 sisters, who lived in one of the houses. Well, one day, one of the sisters wasn't feeling well when she boarded the bus. She was sitting in the back, and as the bus started driving back down the road, she puked. It was disgusting. It was so bad that then her sister puked. The smell in the back of the bus made a couple of other kids puke. Most of the kids puked into the aisle between the seats, so now it is a flow of puke, making its way to the front of the bus as it heads downhill. As it passes each pair of seats, at least one more kid contributes to the now river of puke. And it just kept going all the way to the front of the bus. Our bus driver, Jeannie, had no idea what was going on until this massive vomit pooled in the steps for the door. She slams on the brakes, stands up, turns around, yells, "What in the hell is going on here?" and then immediately figured it out. I still remember the look on her face today, almost 30 years later: revolt, realization, horror, and a confusion of what to do next, all in one facial expression. She radioed into the school to have as much kitty litter as possible available, and that they'd likely have to call in someone to clean it up. So, we arrive at the school, after traveling the last few miles in this stench, and there's the principal and the school nurse. Jeannie opens the door and it had become a literal floodgate, and I remember the nurse went running. We stayed in our seats until they figured out what to do. They couldn't have all the students waiting in puke. In the meantime, with the bus no longer moving and fresh air coming in, more kids started to puke. They eventually realized there was no getting around it, put down towels for us to walk on. Thankfully, nobody slipped and fell into the river. We all went to the gym, where they did their best to clean up our shoes, but that smell stays on you. I recall hearing that in some other classrooms, the smell made other kids puke throughout the day. I will never forget that day, nor will anyone else who went to that school. From that point forward, all the buses had spill powder in a little box behind the driver's seat, and we were instructed to tell the driver immediately if anyone pukes again. Nobody ever did. Yearly high school talent show. I was a natural with the saxophone, picked it up quickly. My brother and I were a duet, and our music instructor wrote a fun interactive jazz piece we could play. Most of the school had heard us play before: national anthem, assemblies, band shows, LOL. On first full dress rehearsal, there was about 50 to 60 audience members, other performers, stage hands, janitors, teachers, watching us perform. My reed was badly damaged, split at the top. I played as best I could, but it sounded like a dying duck. It was awfully embarrassing. The next day, a midday rehearsal, before the main evening show, we totally killed it, and blew everyone away. We got a standing ovation, and most of those involved thought the mishap was on purpose. On the show evening, my brother had been cleaning out his trumpet, removed a piston, and put it in wrong. On stage, and in front of a live audience, when the lights went on, he couldn't play at all, no airflow, no sound. He ran off stage, lights went dim, crowd roared. He came back running with a backup trumpet, and we killed it. Those two little accidents were not intentional, but they made us, two band nerds, famous. I stopped playing after high school, but I have great memories. Here was this guy, who showed up drunk to class. Obviously, the teacher wasn't having it, and sent him to the principal's office. They decided that his drunkenness was grounds to search his backpack, where they found beers. Then they pulled out a brand new bong he had just bought. Principal: "What's this?" Student: "It's a vase, I'm a botanist." There was this kid at my school that I effing hated. Pompous douche. Thought he was hot shit. His name was Sky. He wore blue turtlenecks and chains, he was athletic and had blonde hair. I guess, 'cause he was attractive, he thought he was hot shit. He was a misogynist, an idiot, and one of the most unpleasant people I've met. During physics class, 3/4 of the way through freshman year, the security lady walks into class, and asks very politely, "Excuse me, Mrs. Teacher, may I interrupt?" Teacher says, "Yes, of course." She holds up a Ziploc baggie with a rainbow pipe in it, obviously with weed inside, and says, "Sky, is this yours?" His eyes went wide as dinner plates. He very comically and cartoonishly rushed to stand up, as if he could get it from her, and he says, "Wait. I can explain." He was so expelled, it wasn't even funny. I was so happy, LOL. In high school, some of the sinks weren't properly secured, or something. One day, one of them fell, and hit a girl straight on her wrist. Blood literally shot out of her wrist. Thankfully, not too severely. I guess it hit, or cut, a small part of an artery or something, but not severely. She applied her thumb to it. While waiting, ambulance picked her up, and in a few days, she was back at school. She was completely fine afterwards. As far as I know, she didn't even need to get blood given to her, so, not too much blood loss thankfully. Not high school, but university. Friend of mine took shrooms before giving an oral speech in class. Due to the order of last names, we assumed he'd be the first to go. Instead, the teacher picked names at random. He was one of the last to give his speech, meaning, he started tripping out while in front of the class. Edit. So, in response to all the comments, it didn't go too bad. He finished his speech, however, did sporadically laugh a few times, and lost his wording here and there. However, people would have assumed he was just nervous. In my experience, shrooms are easier to control than acid. If it was acid, he would have been effed. The only people who knew were the ones he told, and me, because I saw him do it. He hid it pretty well. Some people are just built different when it comes to psychedelics, and where they take them. He was one of those guys. I might contact him now. I haven't spoken to him in years. Not sure if this counts, but couple of kids had sex in the band room closet. High schoolers giggle and gossip and express disgust, etc. Except for one of the band kids, who drops his backpack does a high-pitched inhale, and screams, "My trombone was in there." She shouldn't have to see that, and he took off. The couple was suspended, but the band kids never saw the closet the same way. The departing seniors at my high school got free reign of the whole school grounds for their very last day. So, as long as no serious crime went on, the teachers promised to leave them be. No repercussions. A prank tradition developed. Well, one year, the outgoing class decided to look up the younger years' timetables. They then went to each and every classroom the youngest kids would be going into, and put condoms on the door handles, so they'd be too icked out to open them. Sure enough, they all just stood there. A lot of teachers sat waiting inside, very annoyed, until they poked their heads out and saw what had happened. That was also the year of itching powder on the toilet seats. In our industrial arts class, one guy had as his project something that involved acid in a big bottle. 50 years ago, never happened now. Well, naturally, he dropped the bottle, and acid splashed all up his front. The teacher reacted fast, and grabbed him, and threw him in the showers of the gym next door over. His clothes all was destroyed. He gave me his locker combo, so I could go retrieve his gym clothes, so he wouldn't have to go around naked. The safety goggles he had on kept it out of his eyes, and the apron caught the worst of it. But everything he had on had holes in it. I was skipping class, heard screaming coming from the women's restroom, peeked my head in to see if anyone was dying. It was that loud. Lo and behold, one girl was on the floor of the bathroom, with another over her, trying to give her a belly button piercing. Once again, on a high school bathroom floor. Junior year. During homecoming skits, a girl in the senior class was doing a dance, and her top fell down, flashing everyone. At the football game and awards ceremony the next day, some junior students made a huge banner that said, "Seniors had the breast rally." Sophomore, second year, a kid at the other end of the table dared their friend to throw a sub sandwich, meat, oil and vinegar, lettuce, onion, tomato, the works, across the room, like a football, because, well, teenagers. Kid complied, launched it across the cafeteria. It hits a light. The lights had these open frames below them, and all the shredded lettuce, etc. rained down on a girl, who everyone agreed was absolutely insufferable, loud, not very pretty, thought she was automatically the shit, because she was on the cheerleading squad, dumb as a box of rocks. Aforementioned girl, of course, starts screaming in horror, and I started laughing so hard, I was crying, and couldn't breathe. Of course, several teachers witnessed the entire thing go down from its inception, and took the kid down to the office, and when they asked why, the kid just shrugged his shoulders, and said, "Why not?" Epic. Happened on my first year of high school. I'm currently a junior, but a group of seniors, back then, wanted to prank their friend, and managed to place a pen vertically underneath his seat, seconds before he sat down. Needless to say, the kid got out of the school bathroom with bloody pants. Yes, it sounds painful, but I heard he was surprisingly lighthearted about it afterwards. I had grown up with these two twin brothers, elementary, middle school, and one of them was a jock, and one was kind of weird. Fast forward to high school, freshman year. One of the first days, the weird brother is at a table at lunch, stands up, turns, and pukes all over the head of the girl next to him. I graduated almost 20 years ago, and he'll never forget it, haha. Stink bomb. Last throw into the air by a friend, right as recess ended. My friend got the bottle with the stuff to land on the cork, and due to pressure plus impact, it bursts, spraying into the hallway. We had opened the door to go inside, roof and ventilation. Spent the next 2 hours with 4 friends cleaning up. There was an incident in my middle school where one of my friends would casually drop those glass stink bomb pods into the hallway like landmines. Someone would eventually step on it. Happened regularly for months. Don't think he ever got caught. After gym class, 2 guys had been going after each other in basketball, and it spilled over to the locker room. While in the shower, they started fighting. Teachers broke it up, and had them walking, naked, to the gym office. When they start fighting again, one teacher bear hugs one of them, and starts taking him backwards. The other kid keeps hitting the now defenseless guy. The wrestling coach picks him up over his head, and body slams him onto the concrete floor. As the guy hits the ground, you can just see the fight leaving his body. The coach stands over him and says, "You done, or do you want some more?" The guy just shakes his head. This happened in the mid-80s, so, a different time, and would never fly today. First day of school, after they had built a new wing for the school, one of my friends went into a bathroom to smoke pot. A teacher smelt it, and started investigating the area. Friend heard the teacher, freaked out, and threw his joint in the trash full of paper towels, which quickly caught fire. He booked it out of the bathroom, and found me, saying, "I was here the whole time." Sprinkler system kicked on, and fire department was alerted. School was evacuated, and we spent the rest of the day outside, while the fire department inspected the bathroom. Brand new bathroom, had to be rebuilt, after 3 hours of use. This was 8th grade, but whatever. One particular male teacher would give each student a sheet with 4 bathroom passes, and that was it for the semester. One girl ran out of passes, but needed to go. They were arguing at his desk, before she finally yelled, "I'm bleeding out of my vagina," threw a tampon at him, and left. The entire class was silent, for a good few minutes. He looked like he had seen a ghost. She came back a few minutes later, and we all continued on with whatever independent work we were doing. He stopped doing bathroom passes after that. Our high school principal was a great man, terrific educator, full of compassion, terrible engineer. For the school's first graduation class, of which I was included, he rented a stage for the graduates to fit on and deliver their speeches. It was a $100 extra for the rental company to assemble it. He figured he had a couple of dozen very smart young men, so, under his direction, we could assemble it. We had a lot of questions. "Dr. Jones, we don't think this is right," he assured us, so we did as he instructed. The stage wasn't very high, maybe 3 feet, but we all, dressed in our caps and gowns, ascended the stage, and sat. The school band played Gaudeamus Igitur, as best they could, and the stage slowly started listing to starboard. Then with a bang, this ship of academia settled onto a sea of grass in the back of the school. There were some gasps, laughs, and screams, but no one was injured, and Dr. Jones held up his hand, as if to say, "Stay where you are, it's all under control." We finished the speeches, got our diplomas, and the sinking stage was rarely mentioned. They banned Toga Day from Spirit Week, because a kid went historically accurate, and someone grabbed his toga and ran. We had a teacher who famously wouldn't excuse kids to use the restroom until someone peed in the corner of her classroom. My high school had a Wayside Stories level construction error. It was 1.5 feet below sea level, and they were supposed to infill 1.5 feet. Instead, they removed 1.5 feet. So, when it rained, the oldest part of the school flooded with runoff from everywhere else in the school. They mostly figured out the drainage by my freshman year, but I heard stories from older alumni about waiting to class. Towards the end of my junior year, a number of new rules were experimented with, and virtually all of them flopped in a matter of days. The most insane one? Book bag size restrictions. Now I know, this rule was obviously directed at me. I was the kid with the big F-off wheelie dealie of a backpack. I carried all my school shit in that thing, and I never used my locker. I loved it. So, a quirk of the rule was that it also had a minimum size as well. Here's the thing, the female student population is between the ages of 13 and 19. These girls menstruate. They can't help it, it's just something they got to deal with. So, they bring tampons, pads, pills, in small bags. Small bags that were absolutely in violation of the rule. 2 bitchy administrators, women in their late 30s, were the primary enforcers of the rule. You'd think they get why these girls have their bags. You have too much faith in overpaid public school administrators. Teenage boys have more empathy for the girls in this situation than the grown-ass adults do. The bags get yoinked. Girls on their period are now unable to properly handle those same periods. A few of those girls have, in hindsight, some very attractive dads. Dads with muscles, completely justified anger, and nothing better to do. 1 week after the rule started being enforced, the principal gets a black eye and a nasty limp. Bags are returned, the rule is rescinded, and things return to a sense of normalcy. I need to reiterate that the rule was almost certainly directed at me specifically. I was not targeted at all. I love it when karma does the job it's supposed to.